Hey everybody, this is Bruce and the Dog on the Floor, and today we're going to be talking about blind spots for Elixir programmers. This one is going to be about sigils, and we're going to dive in to use them in a real application for playing cards. Let's get started. Okay, so here's the problem that I'd like to solve. Let's say that I'm building an application to deal with playing cards. Like maybe I want to show a bridge hand or a poker hand or something like that. But it's a traditional 52 card deck. And rather than represent something like this 9H, maybe I want to show something that's a little bit cooler, like 9, and then I can use an emoji like this to have a 9 of spades. And when I present a whole hand, then I'll be able to quickly, as a user, see exactly what's going on. And it's going to be a little bit more slick than it might otherwise be. Now, what I'd like to do is separate the data from the creation of the data, from the presentation of the data, and I'd also like to integrate the presentation of the data into IEX so that when I'm working with cards, then I see this 9X instead of something like a, I don't know, like a percent card with a suit of hearts and a rank of 9. So in order to get something like this, what I'd like to be able to do is create data that looks like this, have a couple of quick constructors that let me build those things quickly, and then work on the presentation piece and expose that to IEX. And I'd also like to build some rapid constructors that allow me to build these things with sigils because I'm going to be dealing with them a lot. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to need a mixed new project. Decker to hold the cards. That looks good. Let's open it up. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to need a couple of modules that sit inside here. So we're going to namespace it. So let's call this Decker. And let's call this card. And then I might need a deck, but we'll go ahead and hold off on that. But let's build our core data type. And this is going to be a struct. And remember, we could use a sigil if we want to, if there's a lot of attributes. And this is basically going to have a rank. So for a 10 of hearts, that's a rank and a suit. But since this is so short, let's do a def struct. And this is going to be a rank. And this is going to be a suit. And I'm going to need a couple of different functions. One to create this thing. And essentially what I'm going to do is take in all the data that I need to build this thing. And I want to build the generic type for the module. So that is going to look like this. And this is going to need a rank. That means I need to take it here. And it's also going to need a suit. And let's put both of those in here like that. Okay, so I've got a rank and a suit. And so it looks like this is going to take any, and it's going to build a card that with the rank and the suit. And I think that that's just fine. So now we can go ahead and try this much out. And I'm going to alias Decker card, and that's going to allow me to type card in place of Decker.card. And I'm also going to then use that to create like a rank. Maybe my rank is 10, and then my card is a heart like that. And so that is creating the card, and this is the model that we're looking for. But this is pretty heavyweight if we're going to be working with a lot of cards. So maybe what I want to do is something like this. Maybe I want a sigil with a card and then I want like a 4 of hearts or something like that. And that will translate into something like this, right? Or where this is a 4 in the heart. So we're going to have to tighten things up a little bit. But one of the things, if we're going to work with something like this, like the tilde C, the first thing that we need to understand is that C available? And so what I can do is look for the exports for the kernel, and that's where the sigils are defined. So if I look here, so there's all my sigils, right? So there's sigil C. Yeah, so this is using both sigil C and the right there and the lowercase c. So that's not going to work with us. So what about something like a sigil 4? So kernel. So what if I do like a sigil K for H? Right? So it says that this is undefined, and that's good. So what we're going to do is define this sigil. But in order to do that, if we're going to have a string that looks like this, we need to be able to build an alternative constructor that takes 1 argument instead of 2. So it's probably going to break down and use our constructor with a rank and a suit. So we're going to do that next. One of the things that we're going to have to do is make this function available. So we're going to do that the hard way, and then we're going to simplify the usage. So what that means is that initially we're going to have to import so that this becomes available. And what are the 2 arguments? Well, let's look at the sigil itself, right? So maybe we have like a card, and then we have a 9 of hearts. Well, this first thing is the rank, the second thing is the suit, but all of this is going to come in one string. And then these are the options. Well, we're not going to have any options, but we still need to provide a whole or an argument for the arguments to go into. So let's go ahead and define that sigil back in our class and see how that's going to work. So let's take a look at the potential inputs. Right now I have the rank and the suit, but if my sigil is going to look like this, so 9 of hearts, this thing is 1 string. So what I'd like to do is make a constructor, and I want to break that down into rank and suit. So this is a binary, but it turns out that strings are binaries too. And if this comes in the form of 2 characters, we can break them into rank and suit. And then I could call new with rank and suit. Now this is going to work mostly, right? It doesn't work all the way, because one of the things that I need to be able to do is have an exception, because sometimes the rank might start with a 10. So let's create a special version of this that peels off this exception. So what I'd like to do is say that there is a suit that is concatenated to, and this, we can make this 10 directly, right? Since this 10 is at the very front end of the binary, then we can match against that directly and then pick off whatever suit comes in, right? So this is going to take a rank of 10 and a suit. So if the first thing that comes in is a 10, we're going to go ahead and pick that off as the rank and then match the suit. And while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and also convert a 1 to an ace? Because let's face it, we can't be cool with a playing card application and present our aces as just 1s. So let's see what this looks like. So we're going to now cut over to our IEX. We're going to recompile it. Okay, that compiled okay. So we should be able to say something like this: 10 of hearts. And we could pipe that into card.new, right? And what we've got here now picked off correctly the rank 10 and the suit of hearts. The rest should be easy then. Like what if I have an ace of spades? Well, we have picked off the ace of spades this way. And what if we have something like a king of diamonds? This is picked off correctly with the king in the diamonds. But what we probably need to do here is make sure that we're breaking off the rank and the suit as strings. So let's go ahead and do that next. So I'll come back over here. And I want to pass the rank and the suit like this. And the reason is that this whole thing is a string, which means that these two individual things are characters. So now I should be able to recompile and pick off this king of diamonds, and look, it's working perfectly. So what we have here is an application that makes use of an API that we can turn into a sigil, the sigil K, and we're going to do that next. So it's time to build that sigil now. Let's take a look at what that sigil API was. This is sigil K. So this is going to come in a couple of parts, right? The first thing is we're going to need to go back over to the editor and we want to implement this. So I'm going to say def sigil K. So all this is a function, and it's going to have the card. And remember, this is going to be in a string that looks like 10H or something like that, right? So this is the card. And these are the options. And we're not going to take options. We don't really need them in this case. So the implementation, all this is going to do is call the friendly constructor, this one right here. So this is new 2, and these all combine to make the new 1 function. So let's do that. New. This is going to take the card. Actually, I think that this is poorly named. Let's call this a card string. Because we're not really passing a card. We're passing a string representation of the card that we're going to turn into the card, right? So now I ought to be able to go back over to my IEX session, recompile, and I ought to be able to do that. And I also ought to be able to do a decker.card.sigil K, and I could pass in the king of diamonds, and I could pass in the empty options, right? And that's going to work correctly. I can't use the sigil K like this quite yet. And the reason is that I haven't made this available by importing it, but I could do that now. So I'm going to say H import, right? So this is going to tell me how to import a single file. So in this case, I want to import something from file stream. I want to import build/3. So this is the format that I want. So let's do that. I'm going to say import decker.card only, and then we had this keyword list with we want the sigil K, and that is the 2 already function. So I want the sigil K2. So now I ought to be able to say sigil K, and then with a 10 of hearts, like that. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we could do to tighten this down a little bit. We can make sure that both the ranks and the suits come in as we could allow lowercase characters or uppercase characters. We could also clean up the implementation of the presentation so that this shows us something that's a lot prettier. And we'll do that. But we could also have a sigil that allows us to create whole decks of cards. And so we're going to do that also. But for now, what we're going to do is take a break and then come back, and then we're going to focus on the presentation side of things. But that's going to be in Sigils 3 for Blindspots for Elixir programmers. From Bruce, and the dog on the floor. This is Groxio Learning.